iPhone Different podcast, number 1 for July 30th, 2007.
That date's like a deadline. I have to have it done. All right, so yes, it's our first Phone Different podcast.
About the iPhone?
About the iPhone.
That's right. I'm Dieter Bone, but this is...
I'm Mike Overbo,
Right.
Yep. And so it's a new podcast. Hey-o. Hey-o. This is Mike Overbo, and we have a big crowd for you today to talk about the iPhone 3G. We have Dieter.
Hey.
We have Brian Hart. We have Rene Ritchie.
Hello.
Hello.
We should identify ourselves by voice. Actually, maybe you guys should, because they might actually know my voice by now. This is Dieter.
This is Mike.
This is Brian.
Aww.
This is Rene.
They're new to this. All right.
The iPhone blog presents iPhone Live for Wednesday, October 29th, 2008.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dieter Bone.
Greetings, mobile accomplishers. It is good to be here. It's our first time, so if we've had some technical difficulties, let us know in the chat, but we might not be able to fix everything right away.
Also joining us is Chad, also known as iChadman.
Hey everybody, glad I can make it tonight. I'm excited.
The iPhone blog presents iPhone Live number 79, La La Juju.
Chad, that was a tremendous delivery.
Thanks, Rene. I've been practicing all day.
Chad Garrett, one of our writers, and we're also joined today by one of our new writers, Georgia. Welcome, Georgia.
Thank you very much.
TiPb.com presents TiPb Live number 88, explicit, for Wednesday, February 24th, 2010.
Hi, everyone. This is Rene Ritchie, and this is TiPb Live, the live version of the TiPb.com podcast, where we discuss all things iPhone, iPod Touch, and iPad. But first, let me welcome my co-host for the evening, Mickey from the Cell Phone Junkie. How's it going, Mickey?
I'm doing great, Rene. Great to be here, as always.
Hi, this is Travis from Moline, Illinois. My favorite iPad app is Air Video, and my favorite podcast is iPad Live.
TiPb.com presents iPad Live number 1, our magical and revolutionary new podcast for April 25, 2010. Well, Leanna is in the United States of Can Has iPad. How you doing, Leanna?
I'm doing good. How are you, Rene?
Good, and you had your TiPb.com presents iPhone Live number 102, AT and Tiered for June 2nd, 2010.
Hi, I'm Georgia.
And I'm Rene.
And this is TiPb TV.
Hey everyone, this is Rene Ritchie from TiPb.com. It's December 5, 2010, and this is iPad Live.
Very excited that we have a special guest.
We do?
Joining us.
No, that's Chad. He made it on.
Oh.
All right, tell us, who is our special guest tonight?
Well, we have our first winner for So You Think You Can Podcast contest, and it's Seth Clifford.
Woo!
Yay!
And he's wearing an I Void Warranties t-shirt. Kudos to you, sir.
Well, you know, I was torn between my 3 Tron shirts, but then I thought I would rep Team Jailbreak.
Shannon, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us today.
My pleasure. Having a fun day.
Marty! I got you an iPhone 4S from the future, Marty! They found you!
Oh, God!
You got the iPhone 4S! Georgia Tipper, you got the iPhone 4S!
Forget this.
I'm sorry, Renee! I'm getting an iPhone 5 now!
Everyone, this is Georgia from TiPb.com. Welcome to our weekly show focused on everything iPhone and iPad. From news and how-tos to app and accessory reviews, this is iPhone and iPad Live.
Listen, Renee, after that intro, I know what you're planning to do. Let me tell you, if you do it, you're going to get flamed and trolled.
Well, that's a big problem. See, I've already prepped all the art and the feeds.
Already? Come on, man, be reasonable.
Yeah, iMore has its reputation to consider.
All I'm saying is choose the new name carefully. Rene, it may be your last.
Flamed and trolled?
Madman. You're a madman.
Flamed and trolled? I get plenty of that on the internet already.
No man, producer, or podcaster changes names this much.
I watch that montage and I see all those names. Phone Different Podcast, iPhone Live, TiPb Live, iPad Live, TiPb TV, iPhone and iPad Live. I see the lack of elegance. I see the lack of insane simplicity. Oh, I've chosen a new name carefully. Perhaps Georgia should have done the same on Twitter.
This is silly. This is so goofy.
No. This is iMore. Hey everyone, this is the #1 podcast for everything iPhone and iPad. It's our 300th episode, and that means we're aiming to do some damage. So strap yourselves in and get ready. This is the iMore Show.
It's June 27th, 2012. I'm Georgia, and joining us is the co-host of Iterate and CIO of Nickel, Seth Clifford.
Hello, Georgia.
Hello, Seth. Seth, man, you've been with us for a while now. Jeez.
Yeah, getting up there.
It has. And editor-in-chief of iMore, of course, is with us when he's not on Mac break, Rene Ritchie.
Yeah, I'm sorry I strayed yesterday. I went out on the town with another lady. I did another show. It was actually fairly awesome. I mean, Leo Laporte is the godfather of podcasting, and they were kind enough to invite me on Mac Break Weekly. I could not say no. I mean, it's like Angelina Jolie asking you for a night on the town.
You have to say yes. It was awesome. You did so amazing. You had a great rapport with Leo Laporte, who is the master of podcasting, and it looked like a lot of fun, Rene.
Oh, well, it was in my wheelhouse. I mean, we were talking about iPad Mini, we were talking about iPhone 5, iOS 6, so yeah, it was a lot of fun. I hope to do it again soon.
Well, I'd also like to say hello to the chat room who joined us for our show number 300.
300.
Jesus.
I should explain. The reason it's show 300 is because we did, for a long time, we did 2 shows a week. We started doing the Phone Different podcast. That was every 2 weeks. Then we added iPhone Live on the odd weeks. And then we went to TiPb Live when the iPad came out. Then we split them up and did iPhone Live and iPad Live. And we did both those shows every week for a lot of weeks. And then when Apple unified the iPhone and iPad platforms again, we unified the show. And we added together all the podcasts, and it was a stupefying number 300 today.
That is so amazing. What a huge accomplishment.
It's like when they went back to traditional numbering on Superman or Captain America, and you get a sense of the history, Seth.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, this show's got some legacy behind it. It's got some real archival history nerd stuff.
I mean, like hearing the voice of like Dieter Bohn and Mike Overbo from the original Trio cast when they started doing the Phone Different show, and then Chad over the years, and Mickey Papillon. We had some excellent people, not the least of which are Georgia and Seth. And thank you guys for sticking with us for so long.
Yes, or perhaps the least of which, but I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
So, I mean, this is really interesting. We started in 2007 when the iPhone was introduced. And it was a completely different world. There was basically half a screen full of icons on the iPhone. There was no third-party apps. You couldn't even add web apps at that point. And then as Apple grew, we kind of grew the shows to go along with them. And and we'll talk about this in a bit, as much as people are kind of giving Apple a hard time for iOS 6, if you look at iOS 1 or iPhone OS 1 then, and you look at iOS 6 now, I mean, Apple has steadily gone a long way.
It's actually amazing when you think about how far the OS has come in that time. I mean, at this point, I forget, is it the oldest OS now, the oldest mobile OS that's currently like in market and still actively developed, or is there something that's still a little bit older?
I believe they're still selling BlackBerry 7 devices. So until they put a stake in that heart, we'll have to be number 2.
All right, so yeah, duly noted. But it's really crazy when you think about the original iPhone and how groundbreaking it was then, and just where we are today. You know, thinking about the stuff that we saw in the keynote 2 weeks ago, and the stuff that's going to be in iOS 6, and just the hardware differences, and it's staggering to see the kind of progress that you can make in that time when you're super focused on creating a device like this and then sustaining it and growing the ecosystem around it.
And Georgia, I mean, originally there was the iPhone and it was the iPhone OS, but now you have the iPhone, the iPod Touch, the iPad, the Apple TV, and rumors of perhaps more devices to come. I mean, it's not just one thing anymore. It's a whole family of devices.
It's a massive ecosystem. It's a massive ecosystem. And Rene, well, you know, you've been here for the full of it for a really long time, Rene. Would you mind like telling us a little bit about, your journey to where you are now? Tell me, because we heard was that your first podcast?
That was my first podcast. So what originally happened is I was a Trio user. I had a Trio 600 and then I had a Trio 680. And I used to hang around Trio Central a lot, which was, well, first I have to say a huge thanks to Marcus Adelson, who started Smartphone Experts, now Mobile Nations. And he started VisorCentral.com, back for the handspring visor. And that became Trio Central. And I would troll/post there. And then when they started the Phone Different site, I was on there all the time. And Mike Overbo was running it. And then Mike got a job working at a university. So Dieter, who was already running Trio Central and WM Experts, started doing it. But I was not satisfied with the speed with which he was posting iOS news. So I started plastering it in the forum. And he's like, all right, if you want to write, why don't you just write on the site? And I said, okay, I will. And then as his time grew smaller, I started writing more and more. And then he's like, well, if you're writing so much, why don't you just start running the site? And I said, okay, I will. And the rest, as they say, is historically or history, one of those two.
I spent so much time on Trio Central. Oh, man.
Oh, it was, I mean, Smartphone Experts, Mobile Nations has always been about the community. I mean, that is the single source of strength for all of our sites. We have the iMore Nation, it's the Crackberry Nation, Android Central. They're all phenomenal communities. And a lot of us, Dieter included, myself included, Phil Nickinson, we all came up through the forums. And I think that really gave us a good perspective on being a user-centric site.
Yeah, it definitely shows. I mean, the community around the Mobile Nation sites is very much unlike a lot of other sites that you can find. I mean, there's really a close-knit group of people, you know, from the top down, and it's great. I mean, I went from Trio Central to Crackberry when I had my Blackberries and, like, you know, just blew through those forums. And there's just so many really awesome, helpful people and so much really, really good information that it's amazing how great and how useful the forums are. And it really shows in the people that run the sites and the people that visit the sites. It's great.
And you can go from site to site. So because, you know, not everyone's going to use an iPhone forever. Shh, don't tell Apple I said that. But not everyone's going to use Android or BlackBerry. And it's nice that as your device changes, you can still stay part of this community and move from site to site. Georgia, you're a big fan of community. Do you think we should start off the show by giving away something cool?
I would love to. I think that one of the most wonderful thing about working here for the time that I have is the people that are there. They're, you know, they come by, they go to the chat room, they support us. That's absolutely stunning. It's so amazing, so different than huge, massive sites where you don't actually get to know the people. So, and we you know, see people, they say hi to us in lines, and it's wonderful to put a face to everything else. So I think that they deserve it more than anyone else.
Well, absolutely. I mean, Crackberry Kevin, our fearless dear leader, his philosophy is to inform, entertain, and empower. And that's what we want to do for all of our users. We want to give you information, but we also want to make your day better, and we want to make your ability to use your technology better.
I like it when things match up, so I'm for it.
Did you just say the equivalent of you love it when a plan comes together?
I did, but I wanted you to say it.
Nice. I don't have a cigar to chomp, but I do have a cut to make. So let's talk about the iPhone in context now, and the iPad a little bit. I mean, it really changed the industry. I mean, people can say that, yes, there was a LG Prada before that, or there were touchscreen phones, but it is inarguable that Apple redefined what a smartphone was for the masses. It's a mainstream device. It's a mainstream capacitive touchscreen device. They did the same thing with the App Store. Apple liked to say they were 5 years ahead. It is arguable how far they were ahead, but now people have really caught up. The new generation of Android devices that we saw the brand new operating system, Android 4.1 Jelly Bean today. BlackBerry 10 is coming. Windows Phone 8 has been shown off. It is going to be a jam-packed fall. People are going to have a lot of good choices. And I think that's a good thing, Georgia.
I think that it is. But I want to ask you a question. Is, you know, they say that they were 5 years ahead, and remarkably, a lot of phones now look like the iPhone and or larger, faster, thinner. Do you think that Apple should have ran faster with it?
So that's interesting. There is a school of thought that says that Apple very carefully doles out their changes. Some people say it's tick-tock. They do a small release, big release, alternate years, like the original iPhone, and then 3G and 3GS are the same casings, and then 4 and 4S are same casings, or that iPhone 5 was a huge OS update and iOS 6 is not. So iOS 5 was a huge OS update and iOS 6 is more like a point release. Apple is interesting in that they compete with themselves. Even when there was no one left in the MP3 market, they kept pushing the iPods every year. And I don't think that it's necessarily that they're going slow, but that they are one company also doing computers, also doing consumer electronics. And I think they're only now beginning to scale those out. And Seth, I'm interested in your opinion, but it is noteworthy that originally Apple had to delay Leopard just to get iOS finished. And this year they showed off both iOS 6 and Mountain Lion and new Macs. So their ability to project US Navy style force is definitely increasing.
Yeah, it definitely is. But I think that has a lot to do with the way that they've kind of repositioned their perspective on what each of the devices and platforms is supposed to do. Like, for the first time, they're really starting to mesh together in a way that they haven't before, and they are no longer disparate silos of information. iOS does not sit outside the Mac, and iTunes is not the only way that, you interface those two things together. So I think that, just to go back a sec for the first point, should they have iterated more quickly? I don't think they really needed to. I think they were so far ahead of the curve early on and continued to be early that people were playing catch up for years and years. And obviously now we're seeing really exceptional phones come out of other manufacturers on other platforms. So that's cool. And that's great. That makes the market better for everybody. We can all agree on that. But again, I think one of the things that makes Apple strong, to come back to the second point, is that they're not just making phones. They are thinking about it at a much higher level. So it's not, this is this thing we make, you will buy it. It's, this is this thing we make, and it also works with this, and these things work together, and here's the media you can put on it, and here's why you should use it, and here are some great apps that you can use with them. And it's all of those pieces together that make their position so strong. And I don't know if they hired a bunch more people or what, if they changed something internally, but like you said, they have not delayed either platform to get them up and running. And I think they probably have been pushing to get them where they are, because they know that now, like they were 5 years ago, way ahead of the curve with the phone, they are way ahead of the curve with the platform penetration and showing people, yeah, guess what? It's not about the phone anymore. It's about all these pieces hanging together.
I think that you're right, Seth. I think that it's the way in which they integrate one to the other so that the user experience is becoming more and more similar. And once they get the full handle upon that, I think that, people that have difficulty with learning new technologies are not going to have to worry. It's the same reason why I don't want to learn new video, like really elaborate video games. I don't have the time to go through that learning curve. And Apple makes sure that people that are new to technology and don't like to learn buttons, new ways of looking at things, how to interface and go through that stress won't have to.
So here's a question. And, Georgia, you famously and controversially, but I think correctly, said that the iPad 3, the new iPad, wasn't a great upgrade for you because you don't really care about the Retina display as much as you care about battery life and as much as you care about other things. But that's Apple's typical modus operandi. You can't say it now, but I think for several years you could say that Apple was pulling the industry kicking and screaming into the future. If we look at what the smartphone was like before the iPhone, what tablet PC was like before the iPad, what cable boxes are still like absent Apple, as Apple being in that industry, most entrenched players don't do any sort of futuristic technology. And Apple seems to do it in spurts. So, for example, you got the original MacBook Air, but 2 generations, it was a really good computer. You got the original, you're getting the Retina iPad and the Retina MacBook Pro. And I think that the next generation one after that will be the device that you really want. I think they put out they try to pull themselves forward a little bit, and early adopters love it. But the complete mainstream clean press and drop happens a little bit later.
Yeah, it sounds fair. It sounds fair, and I guess there's no reason for upgrade a phone way more often than the mainstream people. So for people that are getting, say, they're on the 3GS and then they're upgrading to the 5, it's a huge jump, and it's going to make a huge difference. People don't usually buy phones every year. Well, me, but
I have another question, and I have a feeling I know where George is going to go with this. I'm going to ask Seth first. And I think this will be kind of controversial, but is it fair to say that iOS is not for us geeks? I mean, there was a lot of angst about iOS 6, and I still plan to get into more of that later, but people complaining about Apple's focus. They looked at Jelly Bean, they saw a lot of really cool technology, but iOS has always been, to me, more about mainstreaming that technology and not necessarily being bleeding edge with it.
That's absolutely right. Apple has, as a company, never really positioned themselves as we are for geeks, even going all the way back to the very first computers that they made. When they released the first Apple computer, having a computer was the kind of thing that only geeks did. Like, you had to basically always build your stuff. You had to get, a bunch of parts together and cobble together your system, and it was super, super geeky. And the whole purpose of the original Apple computer was, it doesn't have to be this hard. Like, everybody should be able to do this. We want other people to experience how much fun this is. That kind of mentality has been pervasive throughout the company's history, and obviously you can point to areas where it's wavered. But even now, saying iOS is not for us, it's not. It's absolutely not. I've said this before. We've talked about it. It's 100% not for us. It is for quote unquote regular everyday people. If you want to go deep dive on your phone and get really super geeky, you can, because the jailbreak community exists. And if that's not enough, then you have to go somewhere else. And Apple doesn't care that we want more information density on our home screen, and we want widgets, and we want these other things that can, all these new input mechanisms that'll let us do things on their phone. That's not of interest to them. What is of interest is spreading their platform and their device understanding to as many people as possible and democratizing computing. That's always been the case, and that continues to be the case.
Yeah, I discussed that yesterday on MacBreak Weekly when we were talking about NFC and whether the next iPad would be getting near-field communication. Because what a lot of manufacturers have done is just kind of put the NFC chip in there, and then people started trying to figure out what to do with it. But that's not how Apple works. Apple didn't do multitasking. They didn't say, here's just a bunch of background tasks, do what you want with it. They said, oh, you want to listen to Pandora or do Skype or use TomTom? Here's very specific ways to do that. And I think NFC will be the same. They won't say, oh, this has NFC, or they won't make a big deal about it. They'll say, oh, you can now pay with your iPhone at Starbucks. You can now walk into Target and do this. It'll always be very, is that a fair way of saying, George? It'll always be very consumer focused.
I think so. And then we don't get our hopes up as they get better and better at how to implement this new technology with it. Though I'm pretty excited about it, because that's the one thing, is carrying around different cards and everything else, it gets lost. So when Apple does implement different things, which I believe that they will be heading to really soon, it'll be cool.
Well, look at the way that Apple does most of their marketing. They never talk about specs. It's never about, we have this chip and it's faster and this is why. It's always about what you can do with the device. Regular people are not interested in how many cores your processor has. They don't care how much video memory your phone has. They want to know what they can do with it. And NFC as a technology is very geeky and very fun, and we can all get excited about it. But there's not a lot of things you can do with it. And what Apple will do is they will wait until they can say, here are 3 really awesome things that you can do with this new technology. And people will go, that is cool. I really want that, because that acronym means nothing to them. What they want to know is what I can do with it.
Right. And Rene, explain exactly what people would be able to do with it anyways, for those that don't know what NFC even means.
Right now, I think we started seeing the seeds of it at WWDC when Apple announced Passbook, which is a way to sort your tickets and coupons and offers and other sort of digital billets in there. So, for example, you can have movie tickets. You can have your Apple gift card. You can have your Starbucks pay card in there. And there's QR codes on it. And QR codes are really janky. But it looks like the technology behind it, which Apple calls PassKit, is abstracted enough that they can easily pull QR codes out and slap NFC in, and then it'll all be handled by sort of passive radio. So you'll just walk up and swipe your phone, or just the phone might even stay in your pocket, and it'll just realize that you're there. And there's other cool stuff you can do with it. For example, Ford put out an app for iPhone recently that uses Bluetooth, but it's probably better suited for NFC. And when you walk near your computer, it unlocks your computer and automatically fills all your passwords on websites. And when you walk away, it doesn't do that anymore. So instead of having to use a tool and manually type it in, it just works because you're close by. And there's a lot of that sort of technology that is right up Apple's wheelhouse, a sort of magical, delightful technology that makes a great demo. And I think they'll package it that way. They won't package it as a technology, but they'll package it as an experience.
Absolutely.
I mean, I hate carrying around all these cards. I have a bunch of cards in my wallet. They're always getting frayed. They get lost. They get broken.
Well, I don't even use them. I never remember that I have the cards in the first place, so I don't use them. And in Canada now, they can't give the, like after a year it's expired. You have to, once you've paid money for something, they actually have to still offer it. But a lot of places try to get around that. So I have these cards that I've had for, 2-3 years. They're no longer valid in my wallet. It would be nice to have them all in one place, and I always have my phone with me. And if it automatically said, oh, here, you have $20 gift certificate to this store, gave me a little pop-up, that would be perfect.
Yeah, I mean, so let's take a look at this, because something I've been interested in. iOS 6, Apple always does this sort of countdown of new features, the tent poles, whatever you want to call it. And iOS 4 famously had multitasking and folders and a bunch of other stuff. But I mean, like there was, multitasking was something someone had been waiting for a long time. iOS 3, comically now sounding, had, copy and paste. iOS 5 had notification center, Siri on the iPhone. iOS 6, there's Apple Maps, but that's not a huge feature for people because it's more of a swap out for Google Maps. And some people like the features it has. Other people are not happy at the features that it loses. So it's not considered this marquee sort of feature. Passbook might be very good, but it's not the sort of thing users have been clamoring for. It might be neat, but you'll have to show it to them and explain it. There doesn't seem to be any big wow moments. And I think that's why some people have been saying, oh, it's really iOS 5.1 or iOS 5.5. Is that fair, Seth?
I think to people like us, that's fair. And I think that it would be equitable and accurate to say that this looks like the Snow Leopard to iOS 5's Leopard release, right? I think we could probably agree that that's how it feels. But let's just talk about Maps for a second. We look at it and we go, well, they're just dropping Google and we know all the politics behind it and we know all that stuff. Again, regular people don't know. Regular people don't care. Regular people will see the new maps, and regular people have probably been looking at Google Maps and saying, well, this is great, but why can't I just tap a button and have it tell me where to go? Why can't it do turn by turn? Well, guess what? New Maps is going to do turn by turn with one touch. That's what regular people want. They don't want to have to download another app. They don't want to have to figure out, well, why if I have Maps for free does Navigon cost $60? Why is TomTom $100? That's a decision Apple doesn't want them to have to make. So they've taken what is to us a very easy experience of, oh, just get another app and put it on your phone and that's fine. And they've taken it and looked at that specific use case and said, people want to look up directions and then be told how to get there and done it and baked it in. So for a lot of people, that's enough. That's enough added to new maps that's going to be great. People in the chat room are saying, transit apps, the walking directions and stuff have been dropped. Yeah, it's true. But I think
the walking is still there. It's just the public transport that's dropped.
Oh, okay. Walking is still there. Yeah, I'm not running the beta yet, so I honestly don't know. I still think that they probably looked at usage and asked, and turn by turn trumps those other things. There's a lot of people using iPhones in metropolitan areas that are going to be like, well, now I can't do the transit app, the transit information that I was getting. I have to download a new app. But I think that they're probably looking at, we always say it's what does the 80% need? And I think in Apple's mind, the 80% wants turn by turn, and this other stuff will work itself out.
Well, it sounds like it's non-trivial too, George. I mean, there have been a couple of people who've said that Google has had a huge struggle and spent years trying to get transit working. And some countries, like for example, Austria, have privatized it, and the new private companies won't give Google the data anymore. So now there's no transit directions in those areas. So it could just be something that Apple doesn't have ready yet, and they're buying their time by throwing us into dedicated apps instead.
And I think that Seth's exactly right. They chose the things that people wanted more, and then they'll spend the time to get everything else later. They'll make sure that it's done so that people are not upset with the experience, because that's what's going to happen. People won't even know, regular people that use their iPhone won't even know that there's been a difference with the map. They want to make sure that the user experience is the same and or better. And as long as that hits that mark, people will be happy. And again, for people that use the transit and find that that's a frustrating experience because they're used to that, they'll have to get another app for that for now.
And who's to say that in the next iteration, Apple's not going to go, and we heard you. You really missed your transit stuff. So we're giving it back to you in iOS 7, and everybody flips out and says, oh, that's great. Maybe they just didn't have it ready. And the whole thing about we want to bolster developers and have all these, you guys are solving this problem better than we ever could. That could go away. They could roll it in next time.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole category of stuff like this. I mean, it's been made public that Mountain Lion, for example, gets rid of Safari RSS, and there are rumors that iOS 6 does the same thing. So you'll be tossed out of the browser and told to get, if you don't have an app already, told to get an RSS app.
Hey, Rene.
Yeah.
Regular people don't use RSS.
That's what I'm saying. It's
regular people don't know what RSS is.
But at the same time,
they don't.
Apple is just released a podcast app. Arguably, regular people don't use podcasts, but Apple might think, like iTunes U, there is a market for free audio and video, especially now that a lot of celebrities, shows like ours, of course, are being made available more regularly and more voluminously than ever before.
Right.
And that's something I really noticed, and we can get into this if you guys want, but Microsoft had two keynotes last week. They introduced the Surface tablet. I don't know if it's a tablet, a laplet, a laptop, a tap top. I'm not sure what it is, but basically one is like an iPad and one is like a MacBook Air that can split apart and be like an iPad. And then they had the Windows 8 event. And just earlier today, Google had Google I/O. But the one big difference that I noticed between Apple events and I want to say the competing events, and it's not always true, but it's often true that Apple comes up on stage and they show you what it is, what it does, what it means, and then how you can get it. And it's all very consumer oriented. Even at a developers conference like WWDC, they will pause and show you how Maps flies you to a new location and then stops at the point and starts to circle around like something out of a Michael Bay movie or something. Very cinematic was the word they used. They're very careful to package everything in terms of customer-facing features, where Google and Microsoft are still, in many ways, bound to speeds and feeds and engineering and the nuts and bolts of it, and not so much the import of it to our lives.
Well, what's interesting about that is if you look at it and take a step back, if we talk about Google I/O versus WWDC, they're both conferences for developers for either platform. Even at that level, at the development level, Apple is looking to like inspire people in the audience and get them excited about features so that they can get excited and write more interesting apps so that the whole thing perpetuates. It's all about experience. And at Google I/O, it's like you said, speeds and feeds, whatever, and that's fine. And that's, people are into that, and that's totally great. But even at that very, very abstracted level of super, super geeky, the geekiest of the geeks, they're still selling it as experiential. That's their takeaway is there are a million APIs, and they show the slide, oh, we've got so many new features, but ultimately the message is we're going to be able to do more. You're going to be able to do more. People are going to love it because they can do more with your stuff.
Which is what Google has the problem with, is that no matter what, they have to make a tablet and say that they have this, the Nexus 7-inch tablet. It's selling for a really marketable price, so $200. But there's still, and Apple, as we have broke, that, Apple will be getting their own 7-inch tablet. It will be also within that price range. So them being the same, they have to get the technology out, be able to make it for a certain amount of profit. But then what they miss is that they don't have the ecosystem that works with Apple. Like even just the App Store and the amount of apps that Google can give to you and you can choose from is minimalistic in comparison to what you get with the App Store.
Well, I mean,
so how are they going to even compete?
Phone apps, but not in phone apps. I think they said they had 600,000 as of today, but very few of those apps have been made tablet specific.
Yes. I mean, that's really probably their biggest problem right now is that the phone app market is doing pretty well. I mean, you can argue and say not a lot of purchases are occurring on Android, but that's a whole other discussion. I think their biggest problem is that they're still trying to push the idea of Android tablets, and they're not giving people tablet apps, and they're not giving people a reason to even buy a tablet because not only are there no apps, but they're not showing them, oh, these are things you can do. They're just saying, here's a bigger version of your phone, which is what people said about the iPad.
In their defense, and I want to get your opinion on this, they show Newsstand is still a travesty to me. It hides things away in this little pseudo folder. Every app is completely different. Every magazine navigation is completely different. More often than not, it's an Adobe InDesign export. And I do not like the magazine or newspaper experience on iOS. But Google, trying to be an Amazon Kindle Fire competitor, has this unified app for magazines. You just go in there, you pick your magazine, it opens. They're all the same. It's consistent. It's simple. So in order to be like a reading device, I think they've found a specificity that iOS is lacking.
Yeah, Newsstand is awful. Do you use it, Georgia?
No, and I have to say I've really not enjoyed the user experience with any magazine that I've used so far. It's not only not better, it's confusing, it's stressful, which is the exact opposite of what you should have when you're reading a magazine. So, exactly what you're saying, that it's not one unified. It's completely anti-Apple. If Apple did the same thing that they did with going to iTunes or going to buy an application and then made the interface itself similar so that, you flipped pages in one way, videos opened in another way, you could have pop downs, and then people could have specialized features if they still wish to add to it, then I wouldn't feel as stressed. And maybe I would try it out.
I think part of the problem is that Apple's message is all your magazines and newspapers are in Newsstand. And if you subscribe to a bunch of different ones, they're all like individual apps that function in different ways. So you can't go in there and flip through the pages of a magazine and then open another one and flip through the pages the same way. There's all these different like scrolling columns and user interfaces. And that's one thing that's definitely jarring to people that are not used to reading this type of content on there. But more importantly, the biggest problems I had were when I started to use Newsstand, I wasn't getting issues for like weeks at a time that were already out that like were supposed to be automatically delivered. And then I was getting charged for stuff that didn't show up on my iPad. And eventually I was like, this is stupid. And I ended up buying all my stuff through Amazon. So now I have a bunch of magazines in my Kindle app. And you know what? All they do is go side to side. And that's all I really want. I just want to read the magazine content.
Flipboard, Seth.
Yeah, that's huge too.
I mean, is that eventually going to be the thing? Is Flipboard, because Apple has failed to deliver a consistent magazine experience, is Flipboard going to eat their lunch? Is maybe the Kindle app? Does Apple really? I mean, it's interesting what Apple cares about, and I'm working on writing this up, but it's taken me some time. They now make iOS, they now make iCloud, but they've sort of appropriated Twitter and Facebook for their social layer. Apple has no interest in having that. Well, Ping being the failure that it was, Apple, perhaps wisely, or perhaps they understand their skill sets, isn't making a big social network of their own where Google is all in on Google Plus. They added events today. They added a new iPad app today. It'll be coming soon.
I wouldn't even be surprised. I'm not going to say that this is going to happen because I don't think it's going to happen, but I wouldn't be surprised if, given the trouble that's happened with Newsstand and magazines on iOS, I wouldn't be surprised if Apple either looked to buy Flipboard or did a knockoff of Flipboard and basically got publishers on. Yeah, and said to publishers like, hey, if you want to be a part of this new integrated experience, sign up with us, push your content through our little gateway here, and then people can pick and choose what they want and like buy it right through that app.
The chat room is saying that magazines on a 7-inch tablet, I think JJJ Wicks is saying that, is not a good experience, and I'll agree with that. They showed a lot of panning and scanning on the 7-inch. Nexus, but on the iPad, it would be a good, consistent experience.
I've read magazines on the Kindle Fire. It's doable, but it's not great.
Yeah, it's like a little tiny window at the magazine. The other thing that I thought was interesting is just how different Apple's approach is to Google's and to Microsoft's. For example, I guess the biggest part of Google I/O was Sergey Brin storming the stage in his Google Glass. And then he basically had people in an airplane, and this was awesome, jumping out of a plane, wearing Google Glass, doing a Google Hangout with him as they were doing it. They free fell and then landed on Moscone Center. And then they took bikes and they went off ramps and did flips and rode onto the stage all the time doing this Google Hangout. But while it was an incredible demo, Google Glass is not a product yet. It's going to go into developer preview, I think $1,200, and it might be a product next year or the year after. And there is no way in God's green earth, 2 years before the iPad came out, Steve Jobs would have had someone free-falling into Moscone to show off a demo iPad unit before it went to market. Apple usually almost always shows up and ships. And at the same time, at the Microsoft Surface event, Steve Ballmer came up there and he showed off the Surface. And unlike the iPad, which is one device, the Surface is basically an iPad competitor and a MacBook Air competitor. And they did not announce a price. They did not announce, I believe, the screen resolution for the... I have to get the names right. The names are also very un-Apple-like. Like Apple didn't call the iPad for Mac OS 10, 10.8 Pro. They called it the iPad. But Microsoft is calling this Surface for Windows RT and Surface for Windows 8 Pro. And there's two of them. He did not announce price, did not announce availability. There is no way Steve Jobs would have done that 2010 iPad event without announcing the $500 price. I mean, they had a huge animated slide for that without announcing the availability date. They mentioned all of the major specifications. Even the press was not allowed to look at the Surface. Well, they could look at it when it was off, not touch it when it was on. The keyboard was innovative, but no one outside Microsoft was allowed to use one. 2007, Apple marketing were handing iPhones to reporters to use for extended periods of time. The iPad event, everyone in the press got hands-on with it. These are very different strategies. Sorry, Richard, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I'm thinking about it. You know, the reasoning for, you know, marketing something which was amazing, absolutely blow away way to get something out and gets a lot of press and a lot of buzz. But what would be the difference between the marketing strategies between the two, and what are you hoping to get out of there? So if you can't actually, if you're going to create, which is a very costly experience, to have people jump out of planes and to have a huge hoopla and give away a whole bunch of really expensive swag to people, yet not be able to sell it, it seems like they're more hoping for people to buy stocks and for their stock to rise, and more people to invest in the company,
or to get more cool.
To get, well, definitely to deal with the cool factor. But in the end, it's about money. And if cool doesn't equal money, then they're not going to do cool. Whereas Apple makes a lot of money through selling their products. They make a good amount of profit for each product that they sell. So when they make something and get a lot of buzz, they want to make sure that people are ready with their checkbooks. And after that, when they're in the high, go out and buy it. So it also seems like they're dealing with a different clientele when they're, running, these huge events.
At the same time, Seth, everyone at Google I/O today, I think there was 6,000 people, leaves with a brand new Galaxy Nexus, a brand new Nexus 7-inch tablet, and something we haven't talked about yet, the Nexus Q, which is like an Apple TV, but requires an Android device and costs $300.
Well, you're really opening the door for me to make a joke about people wanting to buy certain products over other products, but I'm going to take the high road and not make that joke.
Good on you, sir.
But so what is the point that you're trying to make? Like, if the devices are placed in the hands of developers, more will get done, because that's been happening for the past 4 years.
Or that Google's willing to give them to, like Google is willing to let developers leave with treat bags where Apple doesn't feel like they have to. Or maybe Apple's just mean.
But maybe Google wants more developers to develop.
Yeah, what are the chances?
Whereas Apple, they already will.
What are the chances you're going to tinker with a device and see if you can develop for it if you have it in your hands? Probably a lot higher. However, the chances of you actually following through and doing that probably are not as high as with the iPad, because there's such momentum and such a market and, such consumer recognition.
And a greater amount of
They don't have to
chance.
give anything away.
Yeah, and there's a greater chance that you'll make a better profit.
So one of the other
If
things
someone
that they
has
announced-
67% of the market, odds are that if you release an app there and it's good and gets publicity, it will sell.
Apple did give Siri a boost in iOS 6. They're going to be taking it to more localities. For example, location will work in Canada and the UK. They added more languages. They did a lot of things for Siri. What Google just did for Google Voice is actually put the voice parser locally on the device. With Apple, it's famous, Siri can't connect to the network. Siri can't do this. And I know you've asked for this, Seth. And
angry purple dots.
Yeah, it does seem in some ways that Google is pushing a little harder now.
Yeah, well, I want that exact thing. I want onboard processing for certain parts of language. I mean, I jokingly said throw another, dedicate a core to it and let one part of the OS be solely responsible for parsing natural language. And think about how much better your Siri experience would be if that were the case. And that's something that Android is bringing to the table. So that's fantastic.
Now that occurs to me is how much offline Siri stuff do you actually do? I mean, I'm hitting the server pretty hard when I use Siri, and it would be nice to have the voice parsing done. But then if it doesn't connect after the voice parsing, I'll be just as frustrated.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have a good answer for that. I feel like that has to be a next step to enhancing the overall dictation experience. But again, I'm not an engineer. I don't know how to make it happen. I know that Android is starting to do it, and that excites me and makes me think, wow, okay, then it can be done. It's not like, oh, we can never do that for this reason and that reason. It's just a matter of doing it and making sure that the experience is on par with everything else. And, you can fill in your own Siri sucking joke right now because the experience has been spotty at best. But
not for Samuel Jackson, sir.
No, certainly not. Not for Zoe either.
So the other thing that I thought was interesting is that this judgment is coming before we've really seen iOS 6 in its entirety. The podcast app reportedly was supposed to be in the keynote, but Apple had so much else to talk about, it got bumped, but they did put out the podcasting app. Georgia, a couple of years ago, we had the iOS 4 beta, but only with the phone did we see FaceTime, did we see some of the new camera stuff. Again, last year, we had iOS 5 beta, but only with the iPhone 4S did we get to see Siri, which is, the feature they market the most for that device. We got to see more of the camera optic stuff. There was a bunch of device-specific features. Is it fair, really, to judge iOS 6 until we see the next generation iPhone and what they bring to the new hardware, especially if the screen is bigger, if there is NFC, if there's other specific features?
I don't think that it's fair, and for sure there's going to be a lot more on the table. There's no way that they're going to hold their main event, shoot out their flagship phone, coming out without a lot of other, flashy goodies for us to enjoy. So they have to fill up a good deal of time, and they're going to make sure that there's going to be a lot of cool stuff with that. So I'm hoping that Siri will be less beta and have more things into it and more integrated, and that it can launch and do certain actions and applications all on their own. Taking pictures would be amazing. Just giving you a hint. Yeah, it would be just fabulous. So I'm excited. I think people jump a little bit too fast on Apple for what they're going to have, get angry before they really should. Wait till they come out with it, and then you can get upset.
Seth?
What Georgia said. Honestly, I mean, it's silly to look at things now and try to make either, judgments or assessments or predictions or whatever. Like, you're talking about beta software running on current gen devices. The software is going to change. The devices that come in the fall are obviously going to be, probably vastly different because now we're getting out of, the revision 2 year cycle, and we're headed into, a new version of the hardware based on what we've seen so far. So I think to say anything other than this looks great now, I can't wait to see how it pans out in the next few months is asinine.
And I think you said it, Rene, yourself when you were on MacBreak, but that, we have 4 months to go, and we believe that we have 4 months to go. And you said it yourself, in 3 weeks, Apple fully changed the way that they were going to do the backing on the phone. They can do a lot in 4 months.
Yeah, I mean, that is absolutely true. And I think that also it depends on what your pain points are. For example, before iOS 6 came out, we heard from 2 different sources that there would be Facebook integration. One of them loved Facebook and said, the Facebook integration is going to be amazing. It's going to be fantastic. Actually, that wasn't us. Another site heard that, but I heard it through them, and it was fantastic. What we heard was someone who did not like Facebook telling us, man, it's Facebook. So the value of Facebook integration is incredibly dependent upon how much you care about Facebook. For some people, being able to upload pictures in Safari or attach pictures to email is sort of like copy-paste level table stakes they're finally getting. So I think that's true, but I think it is fair to kind of hold Apple's feet to the fire a little bit. Google today showed off notifications that are active. When a notification comes up, you can actually do things within it. For example, if it's a Pandora notification, you can enjoy or not enjoy the song. If it's a music notification, you could play or pause it. And Apple didn't really do that much with Notification Center this year, except add those god-awful Twitter and Facebook buttons that aren't widgets and shouldn't be there. So I will say, I think it is I think Apple needs pressure on them to excel and to keep up the pace.
All right, let's talk about this real quick. First of all, Facebook might not be important to some people, but who is Facebook really important to? Everyone else in the world, right? Regular people love Facebook. Hence, Facebook integration is going to be a big deal no matter what a blogger says, period. Now, in terms of Android's active notifications, that sounds like the kind of thing that's right up my alley. And a really, really great use of notifications would be to expand what you can actually do with them instead of just activating them or dismissing them. But that adds a layer of complexity that Apple probably doesn't want to introduce. They're very, very, very cautious at what they introduce in terms of UI adjustments because they don't want people to get confused. And let's be honest, how many people are running Ice Cream Sandwich now, and how many are going to have Jelly Bean anytime soon? You're talking about a fraction of the overall market. So, like, yeah, those are cool, but regular people aren't even going to see them in most cases. So, yes, I agree with you that Apple's feet need to be held to the fire because we want to push the OS as far as we can and get more and more cool stuff. But they are taking their time because regular people will never see it and regular people won't care. The end.
Do you care? You're my regular person. Do you care?
George is pretty far from a regular person.
You know, my feelings towards Facebook are pretty strong. So I think that in this case, I'm far from regular. I am, you know, people speak of Facebook and I cringe. So yeah, I think that my feelings on what Facebook represents, be it real or imagined, is just too strong for me to want to deal with it. And just, okay, I'll say it. I'll say one little thing. When I read about when Facebook was automatically defaulting all of your email to whatever is your username to at facebook.com, I just went, really? You see another reason why I'm so happy I don't use Facebook.
Yeah, more and more Facebook is feeling to me like Khan Noonien Singh dangling a bug just above my ear.
Well, they're taking advantage of people that may not be that technologically advanced to know how to even switch it. They've never even used this account, and it just seems a little bit nefarious. They're a little bit scary. I don't know.
Now, I agree with Seth. When I watched the demo of the active notifications in Android 4.1 Jelly Bean, I did think they were a bit too much. I think that they added complexity. I think that there's a midway point though where you can have certain, and I think I did a concept design. If you go to the 16:9 iPhone post, and I'll put it in the show notes, or maybe it was the opposite of widgets post. I'll put whichever one applies in the show notes, where you can have certain actions triggered off notifications while still keeping them simple. And I think that's exactly Apple's strategy. They've shown they are very quick to bring new technologies like Retina displays, IPS panels, those kind of things to market. But they're very slow in changing the core user experience because they are pulling now hundreds of thousands of users with them. And they want to make sure that familiarity, that everyone is comfortable using an iPhone and an iPad, that it's accessible to everybody, that at no point do people feel lost. And they took such great pains to hide Notification Center and the fast app switcher and folders and everything else from people who just had no interest in that functionality. I think that they will likewise incrementally increase the functionality and keep it simple at the surface at the same time.
Simple's the key.
We started last week a Q&A on iOS 6, and we were going to continue that next week. We wanted to just pause for our 300th episode. I'm not going to scream 300 like a wee last, like Phil Nickinson screamed 100 on Android Central last week, but I am going to keep saying 300 because it's an awesome number. We are going to do another major contest because of iOS 6. See, Apple, it's not as bad. Windows Phone 8, if you go to the store today and you buy a flagship, top of the line, Nokia Lumia 900 or HTC Titan 2, you will not be able to put Windows Phone 8 on that device. Microsoft, who's been managing platforms for 30 frickin' years, could not figure out how to properly manage Windows Phone for the second time in a row. And that angers me. Apple, on the other hand, is going to put iOS 6 all the way down to the iPhone 3GS, the 3GS, down to the iPad 2. Basically, any device they're currently selling is going to get iOS 6, but they're not getting all the features, and that saddens me. I understand there's hardware limitations. I understand that there are, Apple only has so many engineers, and making an engineer create a feature for the iPhone 3GS is probably not the best use of his time right now, or her time right now. But I want the iMore Nation to have the best experience with iOS 6 possible. So, Georgia, Seth, we're going to do another Dream iOS device contest.
Oh, I love those. So what exactly does that mean? They get to choose?
They will be given an Apple Store gift certificate sufficient for the purchase of a new iPad, depending on what their contract status is, a new iPhone 4S, probably a couple of iPod Touches, a handful of Apple TVs. Basically, we want them to buy a device that will give them the best iOS 6 experience possible. And if they want, they can save it and use it for the iPhone 5. We're not going to force them to redeem it now, but it is absolutely, we want to just make their lives better and make their iOS 6 experience better. And do you want to know how they can enter?
Please. I know our chat room does.
Do you want to know how you want to enter? How you can enter this? All you have to do is when this video hits YouTube, which it will do later tonight, all you have to do is go and subscribe to the YouTube feed and then leave a comment on this video.
So what they should do is then go to their mom's computer and their sister's computer and everyone else and subscribe so that their sister has a chance to win, their mom has a chance to win, and then just they have a greater chance to get a whole bunch of stuff. So
yeah, I mean, subscribe as many people as you can, and you deserve it. You deserve a flagship experience, and we want to give it to you.
And we have some of the best people here. They do deserve it. Out of all people, ours are so loyal. Some of the people that are in the chat room now were there when I did my first horrific podcast. So yeah, we want to give back to you guys. Another reason why you can stick with us and watch more stuff and get more more swag. Who could say no to swag?
What would you get, Seth, if you won this contest? You're not allowed to enter. No, actually, you probably could enter because you're not.
No, I'm not going to enter.
That could not answer. No one. Everyone would be really angry at Seth if he entered. Oh, would be so angry.
Listen,
what would you choose if you won, though?
First of all, I would never enter. That's ridiculous.
Okay.
If I won, I would probably get. You mean, do I have what I have now, or do I have nothing?
It's your universe, Seth. You live in it.
Well, if I had the stuff that I have now and I won, I would probably get a second iPad, I think. Probably.
If you had like an old iPhone 3GS and an old iPad that weren't getting all the features for the new OS.
I think I'd probably get a second iPad and like do something cool with it in my house, like mount it in a wall or something.
See, I'd save it for the iPhone 5. I'd want to be all over that bad boy.
Oh, I can save it? Oh, then I'm saving it.
All right. Georgia?
I would definitely save it for the iPhone 5 because, of course, I'm going to be getting it. Or I would use it to, and I don't know if I'm allowed, if I could, I would use it to subsidize for a new MacBook Pro because those are sick.
Oh, Georgia's like, screw iOS 6. I'm getting a Retina Mac.
Well, they're just pretty sweet. I know I'm going to be buying the iPhone 5 anyways. I have the Nanos. I have everything else. But that would be so cool.
Sweet. All right, so...
real quick, speaking of buying stuff, I finally got an Apple TV, you guys.
Really?
Woo!
Yeah. Finally buckled and bought one.
Nice.
And are you enjoying it?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I haven't really had a chance to play with it because I haven't had a lot of time to sit and fool with it. But I think in the next couple of days, I'll be able to fully explore it and then give you my feelings.
$100 really well spent.
Yeah, totally.
Dude, you'll be airplaying from your Mountain Lion laptop like no one's business.
That's kind of why I wanted it to test AirPlay, because what I'd like to do actually in the office is put a couple of them on the TVs that we have around there. And then when we're needing to do presentations or stuff, or just talk about something, just like when everybody's on Mountain Lion or from an iPad, just be like, boop, that's what we're looking at. Everybody look. And I want to see how it works so that I can eventually maybe do that.
Yeah, it's really, I mean, I used to use Air Video. I still use Air Video from my non-Mountain Lion machines, but not having to use an iOS device as an intermediary when the video is on your Mac is supremely sweet.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up, I also wanted to say that we are by no means stopping. We changed the blog's name to iMore. We've just changed the name of the show. We are doing, Georgia, we are doing photography. Our site looks like a photo blog now.
Oh my God, Leanne! Some of Leanna's pictures and yours as well, Rene, are absolutely like stunning. I just want to look at them. We should have a wallpaper session so we can take some of these amazing photos and have them. They are beautiful. The site's looking stunning. Really, really stunning.
That little Leanna Lofty is shooting with a D800 now. It's insane.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah, we're doing a lot of the shots with a 5D
gorgeous.
Mark III as well. So we are sparing no expense, and we've upped the quality. Mr. Georgia Tippy has been making fantastic videos for us too. I mean, really upping the bar on our videos.
Really, really beautiful. Yeah. They don't look like the first video that I made.
No, they decidedly do not.
Oh, they don't. Really,
or do I have to call
stuff.
him Black Belt, Mr. Georgia Tippy now?
Yes. He just got his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. So
nice.
Yeah.
Congrats to him.
So,
that's awesome.
11 years, he had to get married to you, have a family, and he still managed to get a black belt?
That he did.
Wow. Sweet. So like I said, we are just getting started. We have some big news coming in the next couple of weeks. I'm going to save it. I'm not even going to tease you. No spoilers. I'm not going to ruin Prometheus. I'm not going to tell you what the Hulk does at the end of the show. I am just going to say, keep your browsers locked on iMore because we have a lot more coming your way.
That we do.
Georgia, where can we find out more about you?
You can find me on Twitter at Georgia TiPb, and you can also find me on the website, www.imore.com.
Seth Clifford?
You can find me on Twitter, Seth Clifford. If you want to hear us geek out on interface design and things like that, listen to Iterate with me, Rene, and Mark of Bajengo. And if you want to see some of the work that we do at our company, please check out our site, nickelfish.com.
Awesome. And you can find me at Rene Ritchie. You can find me at imore.com. You can find all of us at iMore, or you can email us at podcast@imore.com. Or just leave a comment on the show when it goes live on the blog. For all of our shows, see mobilenations.com/shows. And I really want to thank our chat room. I mean, they have been here since we launched iPhone Live, I think back in 2008, and they remain the absolute best community on the internet, not just on our show, but on all the Mobile Nation shows. And it's because of them, Georgia, you know what we did?
Tell me.
300!
Pretty amazing.
It
Pretty
is
amazing.
Fantastic. We will be back next week. Make sure as soon as this show hits YouTube, you subscribe to the channel. It is youtube.com/iMoreVideo. And then leave a comment right there, right below, telling us, I don't know, something funny, something witty, something pertinent, something impertinent, something that when Georgia reads it, it gets her to pay attention.
Yes, get your best, your favorite moments.
Yes, like Georgia doing DFU mode.
That definitely is not it.
Or Seth dressed as Darth Vader complaining about the heat.
That was cute.
Yeah, it was seriously hot in that mask.
Veda was not amused. All right, guys, thank you so much, and we will see you next week for episode 301.
Awesome. See you guys.
Bye.